And we're coming back to you live from the virtual classroom of Cody Hall. I'm your friendly host once more. And it looks like we are going to be starting on pairs of angles. That's right, my friends, pairs of angles. And if you'll be looking, that takes place on page 333. Again, we're going to be looking at some of your most fun and exciting pairs of angles. So, welcome back to Mr. Hall's virtual classroom. Previously, we talked about doing geometric figures and learned about segments, rays, planes, lines, and just basically things that you guys have probably saw throughout your entire life and just didn't have a clue what they were. Well, now you're going to understand why you need to know and understand them. So we kind of touched base a little bit last time on understanding how angles worked. So if you remember, we talked about obtuse, acute, and right angles. Obtuse was what? It was more than 90. That's right. How'd you guys know that? I'm so impressed. What about if I were to ask you, tell me a little bit about a right angle? Are you serious right now that you knew that that was 90 degrees? Ah, man. What about if I ask you, tell me about the acute? How did you know it was less than 90? You've got to be kidding me. Impressive, impressive. Golly, oh. Well, my friends, we're going to take angles a little bit further. So if you will, join me on page 333 and let's dive right in. So angles can be related to any measures of a location on a plane. So we talked about last time a plane can move to infinity on either side. So taking just a little quick recap right there. Infinity, 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 and beyond. So let's go ahead and look at a definition, if you will, on page 333. When it's talking about definitions, it says the measure of a complementary angle. Now, a complementary angle, the main thing that I want you guys to know about that is the measure of the angle is 90 degrees. So that means if you have two angles and then you add them up, so let's just say we had an angle that was 50 degrees. Well, our other angle to give us 90 degrees would have to be what? 40, correct. So that would be a complementary angle. So supplementary means the sum of their measures has to equal 180. So that means when you add two angles, if just for easy reference, let's just say one angle is 100. Well, what does the other one have to be? That is right. It has to be 80 degrees because the sum has to equal 180 in order to be a supplementary angle. Ah, man, how are you guys getting this so easy? It's crazy. So let's take a little bit further in depth here and kind of flip on over to the next page, if you will. And we're going to dig right into example 1. Now, example 1 says that we are going to find the measures of a complement and a supplement, even though they didn't say complementary and supplementary, or if some people complementary and supplementary. There's still a complement is the angles have to add to 90, and the supplement, you said it, have to equal 180. All right, so it says find the measures of a complement and supplement for the measures of angle A. So if what we're looking is example 1, we're using the references that are above that. So if you'll just look in your book, one of them, again, my drawings are never good. So it's N, M, L, and O. So this one says that we're finding if the measure of angle A is going to be 46. So, you know what I just realized? we're not even using that up there, but guess what? We're already up there. We'll do that in a second. Let's just go ahead and run with it. This is actually saying, if and again, I'm above example 1, so excuse me for telling you guys that we're doing example 1. Let's go ahead and look at the top up here. It says if two angles are complementary, they will form a right angle, then be placed next to each other. So there is no actual way of knowing this right here without giving some reference. But one thing I do want to point out is that if you look at the square inside, that means it's a right angle. This, if you guys remember from last time, from here to here would be a what? A segment. And if we look from this point here all the way across would be a ray. So, but the thing we're trying to focus on right now is this little section right here. So what that did, it cut it in half. So we can just make up something. So we know the entirety of it is 90. So if this split came through here, it split it so it could make one angle 50 and the other one 40, or one of them could be 60 and the other one could be 30. But nonetheless, it split this, but the entirety of it is still 90 degrees. And that is a complementary. Okay, so let's go on and look at example 1 now. It says, find the measure of the complement and supplement if angle A's measure is 46. So if angle A is 46, well, a complementary angle has to be what we said? We said that's 90. So if you're curious, how do we find that? Well, we can subtract 46 from 90, and that's going to tell us the other angle that we need. So what do you guys get when you subtract 90 from 46 from 90? You get 44. So our other angle, in order to make that, was 44. And that should give us a complementary angle. Let's look for supplementary. Well, we know supplementary has to be what? 180 degrees. So angle A, still 46. But what did 180? Yeah. Minus 46, because supplementary 180, our given angle was 46. We need to subtract that. So 180 minus 46 gives us 134. So if we added that back together, it should give us 180. And I'll let you guys knock out your skill checks and take a moment to try those. Now, it says the complement, again, complement means 90, supplement means, yeah, you said it right, 180. So 37 degrees is our complement. That means you're going to do what? 37 minus 90. And what does that give us? So let me do that. 90 minus 37. That gives us 53, right? Now, number 2 says that we have a supplement of 114. Supplement, 180. What was our given angle? It was 114. We subtract that and we get 66. And that is your skill checks. Alright, so let's move on now to looking at some different types of angles. A vertical angle are two angles that are formed by intersecting lines but have no common ray. So if you'll look underneath your skill check in the corner, you see it kind of forms what looks like an X, right? And we're going to go ahead and write a little something in here. We got 3, let me change colors here. 3, 1, 4, and 2. So we got 3, 1, 4, and 2. So one thing I definitely want to point out here is when it says that they share no common ray. What is that talking about right here? There's only one point really, and that's right here, correct? You guys can see that in the middle. And how many rays do you actually see? Well, if we look, we got 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So let's take just that little bit of information and talk what we notice here. Can you guys tell me something that you see that kind of just sticks out to you? Do you see any formations of 90 degrees? I don't. What I see are lines going here and here. So that tells me we at least have something that's 180. Now, you can look, if you look at another, let me write a different color here. I'll just, you guys see these? How they kind of, so you see two different sets of angles. Good chance one of them is going to be less than 90 and one of them is going to be over 90. So let's take just that little bit of information here and try to do example 2, and we're going to walk through this together. It says on example 2, if the measure of angle 1 in the above figure is 55 degrees. Okay, so let's go back and see what we have here. So the measure of angle 1, it just told us, was what? 55. And that's talking about this little angle right here. We'll say 55. Find the measure of angle 2. Alright, now here's where I don't want this to get tricky. One thing that you're going to notice about this figure in per se is you're going to be taking different measurements throughout. Like I told you, we know this is 180 and this is 180. So if we have 55, one thing that I want you guys to see right here, and this is the best way I can point it out, this angle here will be the same as this angle. It's just like two arrows looking at each other. If you can see it better like that. So if this says that it is 55, well, guess what? This is going to be 55. If this says this is 30, then guess what? This will be 30. Because they're both looking at each other and they share an equality. Now the next portion, it says that you're going to find the measure of angle 3. Well, let's back up a little bit. Alright, so we still got the measure of angle 1 is 55, but angle 1 is not pointing at angle 3, is it? It's pointing at angle 2. But they do share what we said a second ago, the line. So that means it would be 180 because a line equals 180. And we know the 55 degrees, so we can subtract the 55 from that and find our other angle, which we're looking for, and that would give us 125. So again, let me just do a recap of what I just mentioned. 1 and 2 are looking at each other, if you will. So 55, that means this has to be 55. 3 and 4 are looking at each other, but we don't know what they are. But we can figure out once we do the line, which we did here, and we did 180 minus 55 to get 125 right here. So if you know this is 125, we figured out this is 55. Well, guess what? This one also has to be 125. Why, you ask? Because 3 and 4 are looking at each other. So if this is 125, this also has to be 125. Alright, let's flip on over to looking at example 3. But first I want to talk to you about some different line setups. So at the very top of our page, we have what is called perpendicular lines. A perpendicular, and you guys did parallel lines probably early on in second grade, I would imagine. So parallel run this way. Perpendicular run into each other, and guess what they form? Two right angles. Parallel lines, they will never touch. They're kind of like railroad tracks, if you will. Now, with that being said, we're going to start in example 3. And I'll tell you something that's kind of interesting about this whole thing is you actually do this in geometry class. Let me fix this. I don't know why it is acting crazy. But yeah, you actually do this in geometry. We did this last year. So, on example 3, it says for us to find the measure of angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4 in the figures above. So I want to try my best to do this some justice. Alright, let me write down the lines here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Alright, so let's go ahead and put in some of the information they do give us. It says find the measure of angle 2, 3, and 5 in the figure above if angle 1 is 110. So we know, I'm going to do a different color here so you guys can see. This is 110. From what we know from last time, 1 and 4 should be the same. Again, what I mean by that is if we look at this, 1 and 4, they're touching each other. So 1 and 4, that means if that's 110, 4 should be 110. This right here is a straight line, 1 and 2. So if this is 110, what should the other one be by just using deductive reasoning? 70, because this is a supplementary going this way. Well, now that we know this is 70, guess what 3 should be what? Because 2 and 3 are touching each other, 70. So now we found 2, 3, and we need to find 5. Well, how are we going to find 5? 5 is the exact same because parallel lines are always equal. So if number 1 is 110, number 5 should be 110 because they're running off of a parallel right here. And if that's 110, this should be 70. And if that 5 should be the same as 8, so that should be 110. 6 should be the same as 7, and that should be 70. So let's take it back one more time just so you guys are getting a feel of what I said. Alright, we were given 110. 110, 1 and 4 share the same, so that should be 110. 1 and 2 are supplementary, means 180, so I subtract 180 minus 110, that gives me 70. 2 and 3 should be the same, 70. So guess what? I found this right here, entire portion. Well, guess what, friends? Because of parallel lines, these lines right here running this way, you just pretty much have the exact same because of parallel lines. 110, 70, 70, 110. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a little look now, if you will, at skill check 2 here. Skill check 2 says we're going to identify, and I'll give you guys a second to look. It says identify each pair of lines as perpendicular, parallel, or neither. Well, our first two are running like railroad tracks, so what would you guys say that is? Parallel? Did I hear somebody say parallel? Yes, you are right. Parallel. What about if we have... Are these parallel? No, they're not running like this. Are they perpendicular? No. So that means they have to be neither. Alright. What about this little guy here? What's the easiest way to say if it's perpendicular? One thing I always look for is if you can make right angles. If you can make squares. Even if it's a half square. And obviously I can't even make a square. Eesh. But yes, that means this one is perpendicular. Alright, so look on down to the last portion of the skill check. It says identify each pair of angles as vertical, corresponding, or supplementary. So 1 and 6, let's see where we got 1 and 6. 1 and 6 seem to be doing the touching, so they would be vertical. 3 and 7 are on the same line, so they would be, so what I'm saying is 3 and 7 are running like this, or vice versa. They are supplementary. Now 2 and 4, they're the same parallel. So that means, what I'm saying is if you have something that looks like this, and 2 is right here, and 4, if this one, let's just say it was 20 degrees, that means this is 20 degrees. So they are corresponding. So they are corresponding. So I have already assigned your homework, but I will tell you guys one more time just so you guys will have it. Ah, how convenient. We just got our sweet old ads because we're a poor school and we can't afford not to have them. And I've lost my controller. But guess what, guys? We did finish the lesson and that is perfectly fine. So tell me, guys, what are you guys even doing right now during the old quarantine? Because I'm sitting here just trying to figure out how to stay away from everybody and not get sick. And I'm sure you guys are doing the same. Alright, so I want you guys, if you would, just to go ahead and write down our homework assignments here. And we're going to be starting, it's on page 336. 336, numbers 1 through 22, all. So 336, 1 through 22, all. And I am, again, sorry that this popped up because I do not even know where my remote control is. But, again, I'll tell you, 1 through 22, all on page 336. And I've been your host with the most, Mr. Cody Hall.